Hi, peace lovers. It's December, and I'm still practicing my Kitty Compost voice. For these last couple of weeks of the year, I've gathered 17 holiday-inspired public domain readings from writers like L. Frank Baum, Henry David Thoreau, and Charles Dickens. It's a bit quirky, I know, but so is Kitty, and so is the new Peace podcast series arriving right here on New Year's Day, the Peace Experiment Zero. A humming government facility, a skeptical fact-checking goat, and a classroom full of teens collide when reporter Kitty Compost begins investigating the myths that keep peace just out of reach. The Peace Experiments explore what happens when young people finally ask the questions adults avoid. And perhaps you've been hearing the Next Peacelands here on the podcast. We'll be returning soon to the practice of holding peaceful intention for the specific war zones and the countries that supply weapons to them. But during this stretch of Kitty Reed's Holiday Lit for Peace, the Next Peacelands will simply offer the names of some of the spiritual organizations working quietly and steadily for peace. You can add your own peace intentions to their hopeful rivers of peace if you choose to stay through the end of this episode. As always, the creative books and projects I make for peace can be found at aviskalfsbeek.com, and the music for the Next Peacelands comes from the talented Javier Peque Rodriguez. For a printable list of all Kitty's holiday readings with links to the full texts, visit aviskalfsbeek.com/holiday or see the show notes. Joy and peace to you and yours and to the world. Now over to Kitty. I know your hearts have been sitting right on edge since we left off yesterday with the famous Avignon Mule. Yesterday we met the charming Pope Boniface. We got acquainted with that poor, patient mule, and we heard the whole story of how that powerful 7-year-old grudge was first planted. If you missed that, or if you need a quick refresh on the history of Provence, just take one little step back to episode 175 and join us there. Today, we're finally going to finish Alphonse Daudet's delightful story, The Pope's Mule. It's time to see if the mule's legendary patience pays off, if his sweet revenge is served cold, and if the poor boy, Tistet Vidin, finally learns his hard lesson about teasing a mule who works for the Pope. Let's not waste another moment. The Pope's faithful yet ferocious mule is waiting to deliver that kick. And well, honey, I could read the dust jacket off a history book or the little slip of paper inside a fortune cookie. Sometimes the smallest words remind us that wisdom isn't found in the loudest fight, but in the decision to be patient, to be kind, and to see the whole situation clearly. And nobody, for goodness sake, is holding a gosh darn gun. Following is part 2 of The Pope's Mule by Alphonse Daudet. This Tistet Vidin was, from the very first, an audacious young rascal whom his father, Guy Vidin, the gold carver, had been obliged to drive from home because he would not do anything and demoralize the apprentices. For 6 months he could be seen trailing his jacket through all the gutters of Avignon, but especially around the papal palace, for this rascal had long had his eye fixed on the Pope's mule. And you will see what a villainous scheme it was. One day when His Holiness was taking a walk all alone beneath the shadows of the ramparts with his steed, behold, my Tistet approached and clasped his hands with an air of admiration, said to him, "Ah, mon Dieu, what a splendid mule you have there, Holy Father. Permit me to look at her a moment. Ah, my Pope, the Emperor of Germany has not her equal." And he caressed her and spoke softly to her as to a damsel. "Come here, my jewel, my treasure, my fine pearl." And the good Pope, deeply moved, said to himself, "What a good little fellow! How gentle he is with my mule." And do you know what happened the next day? Tistet Vidin exchanged his old yellow jacket for a beautiful vestment of lace, a violet silk hood, and buckled shoes, and he entered the household of the Pope where never before had any been received but sons of nobles and nephews of cardinals. There is an intrigue for you, but D'Este did not stop there. Once in the service of the Pope, the rascal continued the game which had succeeded so well, insolent with everyone else. He had nothing but attention, nothing but provident care for the mule, and one was always meeting him about the palace court with a handful of oats or a bunch of clover, whose rosy clusters he shook gently and glanced at the balcony of St. Peter as if to say, "Ha, for whom is this?" And so it went on until the good Pope, who felt he was growing old, ended by leaving it to him to watch over the stable and to carry to the mule her bowl of wine à la Française, which was no laughing matter for the cardinals. No more was it for the mule. It did not make her laugh. Now at the hour for her wine, she always saw come into her stable 5 or 6 little clerks of the household, who hastily buried themselves in the straw with their hoods and their laces. Then, after a moment, a delicious warm odor of caramel and spices filled the stable, and Tiste Vidin appeared carefully carrying the bowl of wine à la Française. Then the martyrdom of the poor beast began. That perfumed wine which she loved so well, which kept her warm, which gave her wings, they had the cruelty to place before her there in her manger and let her sniff it. Then, when she had her nostrils full of it, it was gone. That lovely rose-flame liquor all went down the gullets of those good-for-nothings. And yet if they had only stopped at taking her wine, but they were like devils, all those little clerks, when they had drunken. One pulled her ears, another her tail, Quinquet mounted himself upon her back, Beluguet tried his cap on her, and not one of those little scamps reflected that with a single good kick that excellent beast could have sent them all into the polar star, and even farther. But no, it is no vain thing to be the Pope's mule, the mule of benedictions and indulgences. The children went blithely on. She did not get angry, and it was only against Tiste Vidin that she bore malice. But that fellow, for instance, when she felt him behind her hoof itched, and truly she had excellent reason. That ne'er-do-well of Tiste played her such villainous tricks. He had such cruel fancies after drinking. One day he took it into his head to make her climb up with him into the clock tower, all the way up to the very top of the palace. And it is no myth that I am telling you, 200,000 Provençals saw it. Imagine for yourself the terror of that unhappy mule when, after having for a whole hour twisted like a snail blindly up the staircase, and having clambered up I know not how many steps, she found herself all at once on a platform dazzling with light, and saw 1,000 feet beneath her a fantastic Avignon, the market booths no larger than walnuts, the papal soldiers before their barracks like red ants, and farther down over a silver thread a microscopically little bridge on which the people danced and danced. Ah, poor beasts were panic. At the brays she uttered, all the windows of the palace trembled. "What's the matter? What are they doing to her?" cried the good Pope, and rushed out upon the balcony. Tiste Vidin was already in the courtyard, pretending to weep and tear out his hair. "Ah, Holy Father, what is the matter? There is your mule, mon Dieu. What will happen to us? Your mule has gone up into the belfry." "All by herself?" "Yes, Holy Father, all by herself. Stay, look there up high. Don't you see her ears waving? They look like 2 swallows. "Mercy on us," cried the poor Pope on raising his eyes, "but she must have gone mad. Why, she will kill herself. Will you come down, you unhappy creature?" Becerra, she could have asked nothing better than to come down, but how? The stairs, they were not to be thought of. One could mount those things, but as to coming down, one could break one's legs 100 times, and the poor mule was disconsolate. But as she roamed about the platform with her great eyes filled with vertigo, she thought of Tiste Vidin. "Ah, bandit, if I escape, what a kick tomorrow morning." That idea of a kick restored a little courage to her heart, except For that she could not have held out. At last they succeeded in getting her down, but it was not an easy affair. They had to lower her in a litter with ropes and windlass, and you may imagine what a humiliation it must have been for a Pope's mule to see herself hanging at that height, afloat with her legs in the air like a beetle at the end of a string, and all Avignon looking on. The unhappy beast did not sleep that night. It seemed to her as though she were forever turning upon that accursed platform with the laughter of the city below. Then she thought of that infamous Distavidin and of the delightful kick that she proposed to turn loose the next morning. Ah, my friends, what a kick! They could see the smoke at Pamperigouste. But while this pretty reception was being prepared for him at the stable, do you know what Distavidin was doing? He was going singing down the Rhone on one of the papal galleys on his way to the court of Naples with a company of young nobles whom the city sent every year to Queen Joanna for exercise in diplomacy and in manners. D'Este was not of noble birth, but the Pope desired to recompense him for what he had done for his mule, and above all for the activity he had shown throughout the day of the rescue. It was the mule who was disappointed the next day. Ah, the bandit! He suspected nothing, she thought as she shook her bells in fury. But it's all the same. Go, scoundrel. You will find it waiting for you on your return, that kick. I'll save it for you. And she did save it. After the departure for D'Este, the Pope's mule once more found her course of tranquil life in her former habits. Neither Canque nor Belugue came again to her stable. The delightful days of wine à la Française had returned, and with them good humor, the long siestas and the little prancing step when she crossed the Avignon Bridge. However, since her adventure, she was always shown a slight coldness in the city. Folks whispered together as she passed. The old people shook their heads. The children laughed as they pointed to the belfry. Even the good Pope had no longer quite the same confidence in his friend, and whenever he permitted himself to take a little nap on her back on Sundays on returning from the vineyard, this thought always came to him. What if I should awake way up there on the platform? The mule discerned this and suffered without saying a word. Only when any one near her mentioned the name of Distavidin, her long ears quivered, and with a little laugh she would sharpen the iron of her shoes on the paving. 7 years passed thus. Then at the end of those 7 years, Distavidin returned from the court of Naples. His time there was not at an end, but he had learned that the Pope's chief mustard-bearer had died suddenly at Avignon, and since the post suited him well, he had come in great haste in order to apply for it. When that entregue of a Vendin entered into the great hall of the palace, the Holy Father had difficulty in recognizing him, so tall had he grown and stout of body. It must be said, too, that the worthy Pope had grown old and could no longer see well without spectacles. D'Este was not frightened. What, Holy Father, you do not remember me any more? It is I, Distavidin. Vidin? Why, yes, you know very well, the one who used to carry the wine à la Française to your mule. Oh, yes, yes, I remember. A good little fellow, that Distavidin, and now what is that he wants of us? Oh, a very little thing, Holy Father. I came to ask you, by the way, do you still have your mule? And is she well? Ah, so much the better. I came to ask of you the post of chief mustard-bearer, who has just died. First mustard-bearer, you? Why, you are too young. How old are you then? 20 years, 2 months, illustrious pontiff. Just 5 years older than your mule. Ah, that excellent creature. If you only knew how I love that mule, how I languish for her in Italy. Are you not going to let me see her? Yes, my child, you shall see her, said the good Pope, deeply moved. And since you loved her so much, that excellent animal, I do not wish you to live apart from her. From this day I attach you to my person as chief mustard bearer. My cardinals will raise an outcry, but so much the worse. I am used to it. Come to meet us tomorrow as we return from Vespers. We will deliver to you the insignia of your office in the presence of our chapter, and then I will take you to see the mule, and you shall come to the vineyard with us too. Ha ha, go along now. If 'tis Davidin was content upon leaving the grand hall, I need not tell you with what impatience he awaited the ceremony of the next day. Meanwhile, they had someone in the palace who was still more happy and more impatient than he. It was the mule. From the time of Vedin's return until the Vespers on the following day, the terrible creature did not cease cramming herself with oats and kicking at the wall with her hind feet. She, too, was preparing herself for the ceremony. Accordingly, on the morrow, when Vespers had been said, Tiste Vedin made his entrance into the courtyard of the papal palace. All the high clergy were there, the cardinals in red robes, the advocate of the devil in black velvet, the convent abbess with their little mitres, the church wardens of the Saint Agricole, the violet hoods of the members of the household, the lesser clergy also, the papal soldiers in full uniform, the three brotherhoods of penitents, the hermits from Mount Ventoux with their ferocious eyes, and the little clerk who walks behind them, carrying the bell, the flagellant brothers naked to the waist, the blonde sacristans in robe like judges, all down to those who pass the holy water, and he who lights and he who extinguishes the candles. Not one was missing. Ah, that was a beautiful installation with bells, fireworks, sunlight, music, and as always, those mad tambourine players who led the dance down by the Avignon bridge. When Vedin appeared in the midst of the assemblage, his imposing deportment and fine appearance called forth a murmur of approbation. He was a magnificent Provençal of the blonde type, with long hair curled at the ends, and a small unruly beard which resembled the shavings of fine metal from the graving tool of his father, the carver of gold. The report was current that the fingers of Queen Joanna had now and then toyed with that blonde beard, and the Sire de Vedin had in truth the haughty air and the absent look of those whom queens have loved. That day, to do honor to this nation, he had replaced the Neapolitan garb by a jacket bordered with color of rose in the Provençal fashion, and in his hood trembled a great plume of the Camargue ibis. As soon as he had entered, the first mustard-bearer bowed with a gallant air, and directed his steps toward the grandees, where the Pope awaited him in order to deliver to him the insignia of his office, the yellow wooden spoon and the saffron-colored coat. The mule was at the foot of the staircase, all caparisoned and ready to depart for the vineyard. When he passed her, Tiste Vedin had a pleasant smile and paused to give her 2 or 3 friendly pats upon the back, looking out of the corner of his eye to see if the Pope noticed him. The situation was admirable. The mule let fly. "There, you are trapped, bandit. For 7 years I have saved that for you." And she let loose a kick so terrible that Pamperagouste itself could see the smoke, a cloud of blonde smoke in which fluttered an ibis plume, all that was left of the ill-fated Tiste Vedin. Mules' kicks are not ordinarily so appalling, but then this was a papal mule, and besides, think of it, she had saved it up for 7 years. There is no finer example of an ecclesiastical grudge. Well, I had to go a little longer than usual today to deliver the Pope's mule's famous kick. You just can't stop a good revenge story at the climax. But now that our patient mule has had his moment, we've got a treat for you in the next episode. I'll be sharing a sweet, precious little piece from Mark Twain, reading his real-life letter from Santa Claus to his young daughter. It's a perfect little hug after all this plotting and patience. Thank you for listening and allowing me to practice Kitty's reporting voice for the big story ahead. Now stay with me a few minutes longer if you're able for the Next Peacelands. Following is a special holiday edition of the Next Peacelands, where we pause on listing the war zones and weapons suppliers. Instead, we rest our intention of peace on a few of the spiritual organizations working tirelessly toward peace. While this list is far from comprehensive, the total number of organizations, large and small, would number in the thousands if we included all who work daily for peace. I ask that you consider taking this time to add your own intention of peace to those working daily toward that goal. Mennonite Central Committee. Peace is here. Community of Santa Hidio. Peace is here. The Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers. Peace is here. Religions for Peace. Peace is here. Pax Christi International. Peace is here. American Friends Service Committee. Peace is here. Lutheran Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. The International Fellowship of Reconciliation. Peace is here. Baptist Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Community Peacemaker Teams. Peace is here. Episcopal Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Friends Peace Teams. Peace is here. Muslim Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Buddhist Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Quaker Peace and Social Witness. Peace is here. Network of Christian Peace Organizations. Peace is here. Network of Spiritual Progressives. Peace is here. United Religions Initiative. Peace is here. The Christian Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Peace is here. Agape International Spiritual Center. Peace is here.